are listening to the Riverbend Youth Podcast. We hope this teaching deepens your relationship with Jesus and encourages you to share your faith with others. Please enjoy the message.
In Genesis chapter 1, you can go ahead and turn there right now if you want to. In fact, I have a fun thing for you to do once you get there. Genesis chapter 1, first book of the Bible, first chapter, very easy. God is creating everything, and you're probably familiar with this. It's the creation account is what it's kind of called. And you've probably heard it. It's like, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and then he creates, like the sea, and then he creates the animals and like all that stuff, and he's going around. And do you know what he says every time he creates a new thing? He creates something, and then he says, he created it, and it was good. Yeah, it says it was good. Do you remember what he said after he created humans? When he created people, he said what? It was very good. He said after he created us, people, now creation was very good. It went from good to very good. And you can even see in Genesis 1, chapter 31, where it says that. God looked over everything he had made. It was kind of like, it was complete whenever he created people in his image to like subdue and rule the earth and like to bring glory to his name and just to like work his creation out. And he's like, now it's very good. It's like, it's complete. And I love God because he does things like this. Biblically and historically speaking, the number 7 is a significant number. It's a number of completion. And anytime you see a 7 in scripture, it's important. And God or Jesus or Holy Spirit is typically associated with it. So that's why I kind of like, the devil's number is 666. God was like, I'm going to one-up you 777. Ha! If you look in Genesis 1, he's been doing it ever since the beginning. The word good, at least in my Bible, appears in Genesis chapter 1 7 times. That's so cool. I love it. So I challenge you to just go through and highlight every one of those, see if you can find all 7, but don't be too distracted because we're going to move on. But yeah, God, he knows when things are good and he knows when things are very good. And I think we do too. Like, it's almost involuntary to notice when things are good. Like when you take a sip of a soda and it's that one, it's your favorite one, and it's so ice crisp and refreshing, and you're like, that's a good soda. You know what I'm saying? Or like that song that you love, it's your favorite song. It's a good song. It's so good that it makes you have that stank face when you listen to it. You're like, it's just groovy. You know what I'm saying? That's a good song. Or like when food is so good, it's so good, it'd make you want to slap your mama. Like if she was in that room, you'd be like, get out of here, mom. Dang, that's a steak. Woo! Maybe that's just me. I heard this country guy say, that steak's so good, make a rabbit slap a bear. I'm like, that's good. But the world's not good completely anymore, is it? Like, things have happened. We can look around and we see good things, but we also see things that are not good either. And that happened pretty early on. In fact, it's just a little bit later in the book of Genesis is when it all started going south. And we see these things too. And when things are not good, we tend to wonder, why doesn't somebody do something about that? And whose responsibility is it to do something about that? At least I think that. I think God thinks that, and I bet you do too. Because I think this is one thing we all have in common, and I bring it all the way back to Genesis to say it's in our DNA from the beginning to have this duality between bad and good, and to like the good things and to not like the bad things. I think God built that into us. We don't even acknowledge it anymore. It's just subconscious. And so we're in this series, and you're going to hear the word justice and injustice a lot. And we can do a little crowd participation right here if you want to. When I say the word injustice, what do you think of? Is there a word or a situation that comes to mind when I say injustice? No wrong answers. What'd you say? What, like injustice? We've heard this word, right? What's something? Maybe it'll be better if I throw out some definitions first. Okay. Injustice, I would say, is when things are wrong, or not right, or they're unfair, or unequal. We've seen that. What is an example of something that's not fair, or not right, or unequal? I mean, we could say racism, okay? That's a real thing. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's all right. What else? I mean, racism is not all right, but that is an all right example of something that is unjust. What else? There's a lot of them written on that car out on the sport court. Abuse, violence, neglect. Justice is when things are right, fair, or equal. Injustice is the exact opposite, when things are unfair, unequal, and not right. And I think one of the reasons why we're sort of timid to answer is because it feels like a loaded question. This question has become very political in recent years, and it's also just like really volatile on social media. People can get canceled super quick, which is why I'm reluctant to even talk about it, but I feel a responsibility, especially like as a straight white man. I'm going to sit up here and talk about injustice. Really, like what grounds do I even have to stand on when it comes to this topic? And I know it's delicate for a lot of us for a number of reasons, because there's a spectrum of justice and injustice, and we all fall somewhere on this spectrum of awareness, knowledge, and experience. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've all seen more or less than someone sitting maybe just right next to you. We've all experienced more or less justice or injustice than someone sitting right next to you. So our scope is different when it comes to these things, just because our exposure to them has been somewhere on this spectrum. So if you're sitting here or listening to this or whatever online, and you've experienced injustice personally, and it's affected you, and it's affected your relationships and your family and your mental health, and this topic hurts, I want to just say right out of the gate, before we get too deep into it, that I'm sorry that it's not right. I wish I could take it away. I wish there was something I could do. One thing I do want to say is I hope and pray all the time that this is a place, Riverbend Youth, where we can be true friends that surround and support one another and work through things together. Like, this is one of my visions for this place, that it's a safe place to do these things. On the other end of the spectrum, you might say, like, I don't know, life is pretty good. Like, for me, I haven't experienced much injustice. Maybe you're kind of just like, what? People actually still make jokes that are sexist and racist and ableist? Like, who's still doing that? Where even are they? Maybe you're hearing it all the time. I don't know. Where are you on the spectrum? Maybe you're like, there are families where people are afraid to go home because of what their dad or their stepdad is going to do. There are people in our community who don't know where their next meal is going to come from. They only eat when they go to school. They don't get to eat on the weekends because their meals are only provided by the public education system. In our community, like, this is happening. And so I just want to say too, no matter where you are on the spectrum, this series is for you. I think there's something for all of us in here. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 25 today. So if you still got your Bibles open, go ahead and start getting there. Because I think we as people, we've established how God made us. I think we're interested in what is wrong, how to fix it, and whose job that is, how I can help. I'm going to give y'all the benefit of the doubt and say, if there's injustice, we want to see it come to an end. We want it to stop. We want it to be better. We would like things to be better. We don't want to see things get worse for ourselves or others. We want to see things get better, right? Okay, so open up to Matthew chapter 25. As you open up in Matthew chapter 25, you're going to see something real quick, like right out of the gate. Big, bold header subtitle is just going to say the parable of the 10 virgins. Okay, we're not going to be in that parable. We're skipping that part. That's a different series. So we're going to be down a few verses later, and down a few verses later, like in the verse, like the 40s, okay? Jesus is talking to some people, and they're wondering the same kinds of things. This is 2,000 years ago. What's wrong? How can we fix it? And whose job is it, right? So Jesus is using this parable. It's a demonstration, or kind of like an example that he's going to give. And we catch up to him. He's going to give both sides of the example, both ends of the spectrum. But I want to look at this specific one here in verses 42 through 45 of Matthew 25. And is Jesus talking, and he says this: I was hungry. So this would be an injustice, hunger. We still experience it today. People do. Maybe someone you know. And he says, I was hungry. You gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty. You gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger. You did not invite me in. I needed clothes. You did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me. They will also answer, Lord. And he's just this is all hypothetical. And he's like, if I said that, people would be like, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and not help you? Like, what are you talking about, Jesus? Like, if we saw you, we would have done something about it. Like, I'm a good person. If I see something wrong, like, I'm going to do something about it, right? And we would probably all say that about ourselves too. Like, dude, if I saw someone like, if there's someone I knew in my friend group who was like starving or needed something, like I would help them, of course, duh, obviously. He says this, truly, I'm going to tell you, whatever you didn't do for the least of one of these people in these categories I just listed, you didn't do it for me. He's basically saying, if you want to serve God and live a life that makes things better and be on that side of the spectrum, you're going to do it for these people, because when you do it for them, you're doing it for me. You're doing my work when you're doing that. It's like, it wasn't literally me needing clothes or hungry or starving and sick or in prison, but there are people who are literally starving and need clothes and who are sick and in prison, who need help. And he's like, when you see them, pretend it is your friend, your best friend, going through it. Pretend like it's God himself, is what he's saying. And these people, just like some of us sometimes, they had these blinders on. Because it's not only that they didn't do something, it's that they couldn't even see it. And that's what I want to start to do with this series, and even just here in session 1, is just open up our perspectives and our minds a little bit, just to start to see the things around us, just to start to see the injustices that are around us all the time, because it's so easy not to. It's so easy just not even to notice. Because listen, God's people are those who notice injustice and act when they see it. Because there's a difference between knowing and doing. You know what I mean? You can know something's wrong and be like, dang. Well, or you could do something about it. We're going to talk about what to actually do over the next few weeks as we dive deeper into this series, so I hope you'll come back. But today, I just want to put it out there like this. Justice, like true justice, God's justice, says that good enough isn't good enough. You're sitting here floating around through life like, oh, it's good enough. Like, people are surviving, like they're alive. It's like, yeah, that's not good enough. Jesus came to give us life abundantly, to the fullest measure. And that's his hope and desire for all people. Whenever he created it all, that's where it was. We've declined since then. Let's be on the side of bringing things back up, and rising tides lift all ships. You know what I mean? So what do I mean? He designed things very good. Let's get it as close to back to very good as possible. And I think it's our responsibility. Because there are people who are marginalized. There are people who are excluded. As I'm saying these things, you can probably start to think of a face or a name of someone who's bullied or made fun of because of just how they look or their personality traits. There are people who are starving and neglected. We just had a serve opportunity yesterday at our clothing distribution facility called Woven Blessings here in Austin, and there are people right here in our community who just need clothes for their kids. They need food for their families. They need diapers for their babies. Here are 3 simple things, and we'll kind of finish with these three simple things. Number 1, get close enough to notice. I want to encourage you to get close enough to notice, okay? So first thing you can do is just literally pray to God to give you the eyes to see the people who need help in your sphere. To say like, God, I might be missing it. I don't know, like take the shield off of my eyes so that I can see. Just give me the eyes. Like, I want to see things and people the way that you see them. Help me to see it objectively like you do. Also, you can spend some time with people who are different from you. Spend some time with people who are not like you, who speak a different language or from a different culture, right? Different ages. Start a conversation with someone in your class that you've never talked to before for some reason. Get over it, whatever the reason is. Sit next to someone or invite someone to sit next to you for lunch or something. Make an effort to learn about someone else's experiences. Shoot, watch a freaking movie or something about injustice. Start somewhere, but just start to educate yourself a little bit on some of the injustices that are around us all the time. Number 2, be curious, because I think that's okay. Not offensive, but curious, and listen. Talk less, listen more. I have a friend who told me this story about, he was going over to a friend of his house, and his friend wasn't there. His family wasn't there yet. They were on their way home, but he got there first, and he has a key to the house because they're good friends. So he just unlocks the door. He goes inside, and he's sitting on the couch waiting for his friend and his family to get home because they're going to hang out that day. Next thing he knows, the police are coming into the house with their weapons drawn, asking him to identify himself, hands where they could see him and all that stuff. He's like, what is going on? He's freaking out. And this is all just because it was a wealthy neighborhood, and a neighbor saw a black man enter the house and called the police and said this house is being robbed. It's not right? So I got close enough. I was curious, and I just listened. I'm not going to go give advice in that situation. I was just like, dang. I didn't even know, that would not happen to me, And it blew my mind. It started to shape my whole worldview. So listen to people's experiences. It'll give you a heart for these injustices. And the third thing is this: be courageous enough to name it. If it's wrong, say it's wrong. Don't be afraid of it's kind of loaded, it's kind of political, I don't know what people are going to think about me. If it's wrong, say it's wrong. I answer to the Lord, at the end of the day. But someone being bullied or shamed because of anything about them or something like that, their sexual identity, the gender, their family's income, what they can or can't afford, what they drive, mental health struggles, any of this stuff, it's straight up wrong. And it's okay to say that. Because we're all God's people. We're all beautiful, part of his creation. Right? You can't name it, though, if you don't see it. I'll kind of end with this. I learned about a thing called DMST. Some of y'all know in this room what I'm talking about when I say that. If you don't, it stands for domestic minor sex trafficking. And it doesn't look like the sex trafficking where they're bringing in people like young girls from a different country and they're shipping them in on crates or in the back of a truck or something to be sold into sex slavery in the United States. That does happen. But DMST, domestic, so it's here, local, minor, you're under the age of consent, 17, 18. And it falls into the category of sex trafficking because it's people being coerced or forced into sexual things against their will or best interest. It's usually blackmail. And it can start off with just a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or so you think, and then they get pictures or videos or whatever, and then those pictures, I'm going to send them to the entire school and to your church's youth group unless you do this next thing with me. And then the next thing, and the next thing, and it's well, I can't have that, so I'm going to do the thing. And it just continues on. Now that person is literally in bondage and in a form of blackmail or slavery in a way, sex trafficking to gratify these things, and there's maybe even money involved or exchanged or whatever. And now you're doing things that you never thought you would ever do. These are people that we're friends with, who are sitting in your science class, who are going to our churches, who are in your youth groups. It's in every school. No school is exempt from this. It's happening. You may or may not even know it. They don't want you to find out, because if they do, the reputation is destroyed. So we're going to put on a face, pretend like nothing's going on, pretend like everything's fine when it's not. Usually it's a girl, and that girl is trapped. I didn't even know this was happening. I was when I think of sex trafficking, I'm thinking of the first thing I mentioned. I'm not thinking of this. And it blew my mind. And I was like, dang, I got to do something about this. So I created a ministry. We've given thousands of dollars, volunteered who knows how many hours to help an organization called The Refuge that gives rest and rehabilitation to child survivors of DMST. And some of y'all don't even know that about me. This is something that my heart beats for because I learned about it, and I'm I can't know this, having daughters especially, and not do something about it. And being in student ministry, these are teenagers. I'm like, BS. And I've seen people put away for it too, which is awesome. There's this quote from Maya Angelou that says this: do the best you can, which I think we're all doing. Do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better.
Thank you for listening to the Riverbend Youth Podcast. To learn about our mission, gatherings, and more, please follow us on Instagram at rbyouth or check out our website at riverbend.com/students. If you were encouraged by this message, please subscribe, rate us, and consider sharing our channel with a friend. Available anywhere you get podcasts.